The morning sun cast a golden glow over Kensington Palace as Prince William adjusted his navy blue suit jacket, one final time. Today was different from his usual royal duties. Today, he and Catherine would visit the Children's Hospital in Manchester, a place that had been close to their hearts since they first heard about the young patients fighting battles, far too big for their small bodies. Catherine stood beside him, her gentle smile masking the nervous energy she always felt before these visits. She wore a soft lavender dress, knowing that bright colors often brought joy to the children they would meet. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched a small bag filled with handmade cards from Prince George and Princess Charlotte for the young patients. The drive to Manchester Children's Hospital took 2 hours, but neither William nor Catherine spoke much during the journey. Both were lost in thought, preparing themselves emotionally for what lay ahead. They had received briefings about several children they would meet, including 8-year-old Emma, who had been battling leukemia for 3 years, and 10-year-old James, whose rare heart condition required multiple surgeries. As their car pulled up to the hospital entrance, crowds of people had gathered despite the early hour. Parents held their children on their shoulders, hoping to catch a glimpse of the royal couple. But William and Catherine's focus was entirely on the mission ahead, bringing comfort and hope to families during their darkest hours. The hospital director, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, greeted them at the entrance. Her eyes were bright with excitement, but also filled with the weight of responsibility she carried every day. She had worked at this hospital for 15 years and had seen countless families struggle through unimaginable challenges. The royal visit meant more to these families than most people could understand. Walking through the pristine white corridors, William and Catherine could hear the familiar sounds of a busy hospital, the soft beeping of machines, hushed conversations between medical staff, and occasionally, the laughter of children echoing from the playroom. These sounds told stories of hope, fear, love, and courage all mixed together. Their first stop was the oncology ward, where young cancer patients received treatment. The walls were decorated with colorful drawings made by former patients, each one telling a story of a child's journey through illness. Some drawings showed rainbow skies and happy families, while others depicted brave knights fighting dragons, the dragons representing the disease they were battling. Nurse Jennifer Adams, who had been working in pediatric oncology for over a decade, accompanied them through the ward. She explained how the children often drew pictures to express feelings they couldn't put into words. Art therapy had become an essential part of their healing process, helping them cope with the fear and uncertainty that came with their diagnoses. As they approached the first room, William took a deep breath. Behind that door was Emma, the 8-year-old girl who had captured their hearts through her story. Her parents had written to the palace months ago, not asking for anything except prayers for their daughter. Emma had been through multiple rounds of chemotherapy, lost her beautiful blonde hair twice, and spent more time in hospital beds than on playground swings. Catherine gently knocked on the door before entering. Emma was sitting up in her hospital bed wearing pink pajamas decorated with unicorns. Her bald head was covered with a colorful scarf that her grandmother had knitted for her. Despite everything she had endured, her eyes sparkled with curiosity and excitement when she saw her unexpected visitors. William and Catherine approached slowly, giving Emma time to process their presence. They had learned from experience that children in hospitals could sometimes feel overwhelmed by too much attention, too quickly. Emma's mother, Sarah, stood beside the bed with tears already forming in her eyes. She had been by her daughter's side every single day for 3 years, sleeping in uncomfortable hospital chairs and eating cafeteria food, never leaving except when absolutely necessary. Emma's father, Michael, had rushed from work when he heard about the royal visit. His construction job required long hours, but he always made time for the important moments in his daughter's treatment. He stood quietly in the corner, still wearing his work boots, feeling out of place but grateful beyond words that such important people had come to see his little girl. The room fell silent for a moment as William and Catherine settled into chairs beside Emma's bed. They had visited many hospitals before, but each child's story was unique, and each visit brought its own emotional challenges. William could see the strength in Emma's eyes, the same strength he had witnessed in soldiers he had met during his military service, but somehow even more remarkable coming from someone so young. Catherine reached into her bag and pulled out one of Princess Charlotte's handmade cards. It was decorated with glitter and stickers, and inside, Charlotte had written in her careful handwriting, "Dear friend, I hope you feel better soon. Love from Charlotte." Emma's face lit up as she read the card, holding it carefully as if it were made of precious jewels. This was just the beginning of what would become an unforgettable day, not just for Emma and her family, but for everyone whose lives would be touched by the genuine compassion and humanity that William and Catherine brought to each interaction. The royal couple understood that their presence alone could not heal physical ailments, but they also knew that hope, love, and human connection were powerful medicines in their own right. Emma clutched Princess Charlotte's card against her chest and looked up at William with wonder-filled eyes. "Are you really a prince?" she asked in a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might make him disappear like a character from one of her storybooks. William chuckled softly and nodded, his formal royal composure melting away in the presence of this brave little girl. "I am," he said, pulling his chair closer to her bed. "But more importantly, I heard you're a real-life princess yourself. The nurses told me you're the bravest person in this whole hospital." Emma giggled, a sound that filled the sterile room with pure joy. Her mother, Sarah, wiped away tears, amazed at how quickly her daughter's spirits had lifted. Catherine noticed that Emma kept touching her colorful scarf, adjusting it self-consciously. Understanding the sensitivity young patients often felt about their appearance, Catherine gently complimented the beautiful colors and asked who had made it. When Emma proudly explained that her grandmother had knitted it especially for her, Catherine asked if she could feel how soft it was. This simple gesture helped Emma feel confident and beautiful, exactly as she was. "Would you like to see something special?" William asked, reaching into his jacket pocket. Emma's eyes widened with curiosity as he pulled out his phone and showed her pictures of Prince George and Princess Charlotte playing in their garden at home. "They asked me to take these photos for any new friends I might meet today," he explained. Emma studied each picture carefully, pointing out her favorite flowers and asking questions about what games the royal children liked to play. As they talked, Emma's energy seemed to grow stronger. She began telling William and Catherine about her own family, describing her pet rabbit named Snowball and how much she missed playing in her backyard. Her parents exchanged amazed glances. They hadn't seen Emma this animated in weeks. The chemotherapy had made her tired and weak, but somehow the presence of these caring visitors had awakened something special inside her. Dr. Mitchell quietly entered the room to check on the visit's progress. She had been working with seriously ill children for many years, but she still felt moved watching William and Catherine interact so naturally with their young patients. There was nothing rehearsed or formal about their behavior. They were simply two parents connecting with a child who needed to feel valued and loved. Emma suddenly became serious and looked directly at Catherine. "Princess Catherine," she said formally, "I want to show you something." She reached under her pillow and pulled out a worn notebook filled with her drawings. Each page showed different scenes. Some depicted her family at home. Others showed the hospital staff who had become like family to her, and several showed herself as a superhero fighting monsters. Catherine examined each drawing with genuine interest, asking Emma to explain the stories behind them. One picture showed Emma flying through the sky with a cape, her bald head crowned with a sparkling tiara. "This is me when I'm completely better," Emma explained. "I can fly anywhere I want and help other sick children feel brave too." The innocent hope in her voice brought fresh tears to her mother's eyes. William studied a drawing that showed Emma with long, flowing hair, standing in a garden surrounded by butterflies. "Tell me about this one," he said gently. Emma's face brightened as she explained that this was her dream for when her hair grew back. She wanted to plant a butterfly garden in her backyard so she could watch them dance among the flowers every day. "You know," Catherine said thoughtfully, "we have a butterfly garden at our home too. Would you like me to take some pictures of it for you? Maybe you could get some ideas for your own garden." Emma nodded enthusiastically, already imagining the possibilities. Her father Michael stepped forward from the corner, his voice thick with emotion as he promised Emma that they would start planning their butterfly garden as soon as she came home. The conversation continued for nearly an hour, with William and Catherine giving Emma their complete attention. They asked about her favorite books, her best friends at school, and what she wanted to be when she grew up. Emma's answers revealed a thoughtful, creative child who dreamed of becoming either a doctor to help other sick children or an artist who could paint pictures that made people happy. As their time with Emma drew to a close, Catherine had an idea. She asked Emma if she would like to write a letter to Princess Charlotte, since Charlotte had sent her a card. Emma's face lit up with excitement at the possibility of having a royal pen pal. Her mother quickly found paper and crayons, and Emma began composing her letter immediately, writing carefully about her favorite colors, her pet rabbit, and her dreams for the future. William watched Emma write with intense concentration, her tongue sticking out slightly as she focused on forming each letter perfectly. In that moment, he was struck by the resilience of childhood, how even in the face of serious illness, children could still dream, create, and find joy in simple connections with others. The nursing staff had gathered quietly in the hallway, many wiping away tears as they witnessed the genuine affection flowing between the royal couple and their young patient. Nurse Jennifer Adams had seen many celebrity visits over the years, but none had felt as authentic and meaningful as this one. William and Catherine weren't just fulfilling a royal duty. They were creating real relationships with these children. As Emma finished her letter and handed it to Catherine with pride, the room filled with a sense of hope that hadn't been there an hour earlier. Emma's parents looked at their daughter with renewed optimism, seeing strength and joy they had feared might be lost forever. The visit had reminded everyone present that healing involves more than just medical treatment. It requires love, connection, and the belief that every life has infinite value and potential. After saying goodbye to Emma with promises to stay in touch, William and Catherine moved through the hospital corridors with Dr. Mitchell leading the way. Their next stop was the cardiac unit, where 10-year-old James awaited their visit. Unlike Emma's bright, decorated room, James's space was filled with more serious medical equipment, monitors that tracked his heart rhythm and machines that helped support his fragile cardiovascular system. James sat propped up in his bed, connected to several tubes and wires, but his alert brown eyes followed every movement in the room. He had been born with a complex heart condition that required multiple surgeries throughout his young life. His chest bore several surgical scars, badges of courage that told the story of his ongoing battle for health. Despite his physical limitations, James possessed a sharp intellect and an infectious sense of humor that had made him a favorite among the hospital staff. His parents, Linda and David, had been taking turns staying with him around the clock for the past 6 weeks. David worked as a mechanic at a local garage, while Linda had taken indefinite leave from her job as a teacher to care for James. The financial strain was enormous, but they never complained. Their only focus was supporting their son through each day of his treatment. When William and Catherine entered James's room, they immediately noticed his collection of airplane models displayed on the windowsill. James had built each one himself during his many hospital stays, carefully painting the details and arranging them as if they were ready for takeoff. His dream was to become a pilot someday, despite doctors' warnings that his heart condition might make that impossible. "Those are incredible models," William said, genuinely impressed by the craftsmanship. "Did you build all of these yourself?" James nodded proudly, launching into detailed explanations about each aircraft, their specifications, their history, and why he had chosen to build them. His knowledge was remarkable for someone his age, clearly the result of countless hours spent researching and dreaming about flight. Catherine listened intently as James described his favorite model, a World War II Spitfire that his grandfather had flown during the war. "Grandpa Joe told me stories about flying over the English countryside," James explained, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "He said it felt like being free as a bird, soaring above all the problems on the ground." The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. This boy who dreamed of flying was currently tethered to machines that kept his heart beating properly. William, drawing on his own experience as a search and rescue helicopter pilot, began sharing stories about flying that captivated James completely. He described the feeling of lifting off the ground, the responsibility of rescue missions, and the incredible views from thousands of feet above the earth. James hung on every word, occasionally asking technical questions that impressed William with their sophistication. "You know," William said thoughtfully, "some of the best pilots I've known have overcome significant challenges. Having obstacles doesn't mean giving up on dreams, it means finding different ways to achieve them." He told James about pilots who had adapted to various physical limitations while still pursuing aviation careers, whether as instructors, engineers, or in other aviation-related fields. Dr. Mitchell had quietly joined them and listened to their conversation with growing emotion. She had watched James struggle with depression when he learned that his heart condition might prevent him from becoming a commercial pilot. Seeing his excitement return as he talked with William gave her hope that James would find ways to pursue his passion regardless of his limitations. Catherine noticed that James kept glancing at a photo on his bedside table, showing him with his grandfather beside a small aircraft. When she asked about it, James's face softened with love and sadness. "Grandpa Joe passed away last year," he said quietly. "But before he died, he promised to watch over me from up in the clouds. Sometimes when I look out the window, I imagine I can see him flying around up there." The room fell silent for a moment as everyone absorbed the depth of James's loss and his beautiful way of staying connected to his grandfather's memory. Linda reached over and squeezed her son's hand, remembering how devastated James had been when his grandfather died. Joe had been James's biggest supporter and had shared his love of aviation with his grandson from the time James was old enough to hold a toy airplane. William had an idea that brought a smile to his face. "James, what would you say if I told you I might be able to arrange for you to visit an airfield when you're feeling stronger? Maybe even sit in a real aircraft?" James's eyes widened with disbelief and excitement. His parents looked equally amazed. They had never imagined such an opportunity might be possible for their son. "Really?" James whispered, as if speaking too loudly might make the offer disappear. William nodded, already mentally making notes about which contacts he could reach out to make this happen. He knew several pilots and aviation facilities who would be honored to host such a brave young man. Catherine watched the transformation in James's demeanor as hope replaced the resigned sadness that had filled his eyes when they first entered the room. She understood the power of having something to look forward to, especially for children facing uncertain futures. The promise of a future adventure gave James a reason to focus on getting stronger and surviving his current treatment. As they prepared to move on to their next visit, James carefully selected one of his smaller airplane models, a sleek blue fighter jet, and offered it to William. "This is for Prince George," he said shyly. "Maybe he'll like airplanes too when he gets older." William accepted the gift with genuine gratitude, promising to tell George about the generous boy who had made it with his own hands. The exchange of gifts had created a connection that would last far beyond this hospital visit. James had given something precious to a boy he had never met, and in return he had received hope for his own future. His parents watched with tears in their eyes, seeing their son's spirit restored in ways that medicine alone could never achieve. As William and Catherine left James's room, they carried with them the image of a young boy whose dreams refused to be grounded by physical limitations. The visit had reminded them once again that courage comes in many forms, and that sometimes the smallest gestures can have the most profound impact on a person's life. The afternoon brought William and Catherine to the hospital's rehabilitation wing, where children worked to regain abilities lost through accidents, illnesses, or surgeries. The sound of physical therapy sessions filled the air, encouraging voices of therapists, the whir of exercise equipment, and the determined grunts of young patients pushing themselves to achieve small but significant victories. In the main therapy room, they met 12-year-old Sophie, who was learning to walk again after a severe car accident 6 months earlier had damaged her spinal cord. Sophie sat in her wheelchair, wearing bright purple athletic clothes that matched her determined personality. Her leg muscles had weakened significantly during months of bed rest, but her spirit remained unbroken. Physical therapist Mark Stevens had been working with Sophie daily, celebrating every tiny improvement in her mobility. Sophie's accident had happened on what should have been a normal day. She was riding her bicycle to meet friends at the local park when a distracted driver ran a red light and struck her. The impact had caused multiple injuries, including damage to her lower spine that doctors initially feared might leave her permanently paralyzed. Through months of intensive treatment and therapy, Sophie had regained some sensation in her legs, though walking remained a distant goal. When William and Catherine approached, Sophie was in the middle of a standing exercise, supported by parallel bars and Mark's steady hands. Sweat beaded on her forehead from the effort of keeping her legs beneath her, but she refused to give up. Her concentration was so intense that she didn't notice her royal visitors until Mark gently told her she had company. Sophie's face flushed with embarrassment, thinking she might look weak or struggling in front of such important guests. But Catherine immediately put her at ease by commenting on how impressed she was to see Sophie working so hard. "I can tell you're incredibly strong," Catherine said warmly. "What you're doing looks much more difficult than anything I do at the gym." "It is really hard," Sophie admitted, grateful that Catherine didn't pretend the exercises looked easy. "Some days I want to quit because it hurts and I get frustrated. But Mark keeps reminding me that every small step counts, even if I can't see the progress myself." Her honesty about the emotional challenges of recovery impressed both William and Catherine, who recognized the maturity required to acknowledge such difficult feelings. Mark explained Sophie's treatment plan and the remarkable progress she had made. When she first arrived at the hospital, doctors weren't sure if she would ever regain feeling in her legs. But Sophie's determination, combined with cutting-edge rehabilitation techniques, had exceeded everyone's expectations. She could now stand with support for several minutes and had even taken a few assisted steps. William asked Sophie about her life before the accident. Learning that she had been an enthusiastic soccer player and dancer, she had dreamed of trying out for her school's competitive dance team and had been saving money from her allowance to buy proper dance shoes. The accident had shattered those immediate plans, but Sophie spoke about them without bitterness, focusing instead on new goals she was setting for herself. "I still want to dance again," Sophie said with quiet conviction. "Maybe not the same way as before, but I'm learning that there are different kinds of dancing. My therapist showed me videos of wheelchair dancers and they're amazing. I never knew such beautiful performances were possible." Her ability to adapt her dreams rather than abandon them completely demonstrated remarkable resilience for someone her age. Catherine was moved by Sophie's perspective and asked if she had been able to continue with any creative activities during her recovery. Sophie's face brightened as she described the art classes the hospital offered to long-term patients. She had discovered a talent for painting that she never knew she possessed, creating colorful landscapes and abstract pieces that expressed emotions she couldn't always put into words. "Would you like to see some of my paintings?" Sophie asked excitedly. Mark wheeled her to a corner of the therapy room where several of her artworks were displayed. Each piece told a different part of her recovery story. Dark, stormy images from her early days in the hospital gradually giving way to brighter, more hopeful scenes as her condition improved. One painting particularly caught William's attention. It showed a figure rising from what appeared to be turbulent waters, reaching toward a brilliant sunrise. Sophie explained that she had painted it after her first successful standing exercise. When she finally believed that recovery might be possible, "The water represents all the scary, confusing feelings," she said. "But the person is swimming toward the light, not giving up." As they admired Sophie's artwork, her parents arrived for their daily visit. David and Michelle Thompson had been taking turns staying with Sophie throughout her hospitalization, while trying to maintain their jobs and care for Sophie's younger brother at home. The stress had been overwhelming, but seeing their daughter's fighting spirit gave them strength to keep going. Michelle shared how proud they were of Sophie's attitude and progress. "She has good days and bad days," Michelle explained, "but she never stops trying." Even when the doctors weren't sure what her recovery would look like, Sophie kept insisting that she would find ways to do the things she loved. The family's unity and mutual support had clearly played a crucial role in Sophie's remarkable progress. William was struck by Sophie's goal-setting approach to recovery. Rather than focusing on everything she had lost, she constantly identified new targets to work toward. Her current goal was to walk unassisted to the hospital's chapel, where she wanted to light a candle in gratitude for her survival. It was a modest distance, but it represented an enormous achievement given where her journey had started. "Setting small, reachable goals has been really important for me," Sophie explained to Catherine. "When I first got here, walking seemed impossible, so we started with just trying to wiggle my toes. Every tiny success made the next goal seem more possible." Her insight into the psychology of recovery impressed the medical staff, who often used Sophie's approach as an example for other patients. As their visit with Sophie concluded, she made a request that surprised everyone. She asked if she could give Catherine a hug while standing up, supported by the parallel bars. With Mark's help, Sophie pulled herself to her feet and maintained her balance long enough to embrace Catherine properly. The hug lasted only a few seconds, but it represented months of hard work and determination. There wasn't a dry eye in the year room as Sophie accomplished this meaningful goal in front of her royal visitors. The moment captured everything beautiful about the human spirit's capacity to overcome adversity through courage, support, and hope. Sophie's journey was far from over, but her progress proved that with the right combination of medical care, family love, and personal determination, even the most devastating setbacks could become the foundation for new kinds of strength and purpose. As evening approached, William and Catherine found themselves in the hospital's family lounge, a comfortable space where relatives could take breaks from the intensity of bedside vigils. The room was filled with worn but cozy furniture, children's books scattered on low tables, and walls covered with thank you cards from former patients. This was where families processed their fears, shared their hopes, and found strength in each other's company during the most challenging times of their lives. Several families had gathered to meet the royal couple, including parents whose children were undergoing long-term treatments. Among them were Maria and Carlos Santos, whose 4-year-old twin daughters Isabella and Sofia were both battling a rare genetic disorder that affected their immune systems. The girls required isolation precautions that prevented William and Catherine from visiting them directly, but their parents had requested the chance to speak about their daughters' remarkable bond during treatment. Maria's eyes filled with tears as she described how the twins had supported each other through painful procedures and scary moments. They've never been apart for more than a few hours their entire lives, she explained. When one twin has a bad day, the other somehow finds extra strength to be cheerful. It's like they share courage between them. The hospital staff had been amazed by the girls' ability to comfort each other in ways that adults couldn't replicate. Carlos added that the twins had created their own special language for talking about their medical treatments, turning frightening procedures into adventures. They pretend the IV needles are magic wands that give them superpowers, he said with a mixture of pride and heartbreak. They've convinced themselves that every medicine makes them stronger, like characters in their favorite cartoons. Their parents had learned to follow the girls' lead, finding hope in their children's incredible ability to reframe scary experiences. Sitting nearby was Jennifer Walsh, a single mother whose 15-year-old son Kevin was recovering from a traumatic brain injury sustained in a skateboarding accident. Kevin had been in a coma for 3 weeks, and when he woke up, he had to relearn basic skills like speaking and walking. Jennifer had quit her job to care for him full-time, relying on community fundraisers and family support to cover their expenses. The hardest part isn't the medical stuff, Jennifer confided to Catherine. It's watching him struggle with things that used to be so easy for him. He was an honor student and a talented athlete, and now he gets frustrated trying to remember simple words or button his shirt. Her voice broke as she described Kevin's emotional struggles with his changed abilities and uncertain future, but Jennifer also shared moments of unexpected joy in Kevin's recovery. Last week he remembered the lyrics to his favorite song for the first time since the accident, she said, her face lighting up. He started singing it softly, and I cried because I thought I might never hear his voice the same way again. These small victories had taught Jennifer to celebrate progress in ways she never would have understood before the accident. William listened intently as Robert and Helen Mitchell described their 7-year-old son Danny's battle with autism and severe epilepsy. Danny's seizures were unpredictable and dangerous, requiring constant supervision and frequent hospital stays for medication adjustments. The family had learned to live with uncertainty, never knowing when a normal day might suddenly become a medical emergency. People sometimes ask us how we cope, Helen said quietly. The truth is, we just take one day at a time. We've learned to find happiness in small moments. When Danny smiles, when he has a seizure-free day, when he makes a connection with someone new. Their perspective had shifted completely since Danny's diagnosis, helping them appreciate simple pleasures that other families might take for granted. Robert explained how Danny's condition had actually brought their family closer together. Our older children have become incredibly compassionate and responsible, he said. They've learned that everyone has different abilities and challenges. In some ways, Danny has taught us all how to be better people. The family's experience demonstrated how medical challenges could strengthen relationships rather than break them. Apart, Catherine was particularly moved by the story of 8-year-old Aisha, whose parents had fled their war-torn country seeking medical treatment for her rare bone disorder. Aisha's father, Ahmed, worked multiple jobs to pay for her care while learning English, and her mother, Fatima, stayed with Aisha at the hospital despite feeling isolated by language barriers and cultural differences. Through a translator, Fatima explained how grateful they were for the medical care Aisha was receiving, but also how homesick they felt being so far from their extended family during this difficult time. In our country, the whole community helps when a child is sick, she said. Here we have excellent doctors, but we miss having grandparents and cousins nearby to share the worry and provide comfort. The hospital's social worker had helped connect Aisha's family with a local refugee support group, where they found other families who understood their unique challenges. Now we have a new kind of community, Ahmed said with a smile. People from many different countries, all helping each other through difficult times. Aisha has friends who speak different languages but understand exactly how she feels. As the families shared their stories, William and Catherine began to see common themes emerging. Despite facing vastly different medical challenges, all these parents had discovered inner strength they never knew they possessed. They had learned to advocate fiercely for their children while maintaining hope during the darkest moments. Most importantly, they had found ways to support each other, creating a community of understanding that transcended their individual circumstances. The conversation gradually shifted from the challenges to the unexpected gifts that had come from their experiences. Many parents spoke about developing deeper relationships with their children, learning to communicate on more meaningful levels, and discovering what truly mattered in life. While none of them would have chosen these difficult paths, they had found purpose and connection in ways they never anticipated. Dr. Mitchell joined the group and shared her observations about the families they served. What amazes me every day, she said, is how these parents transform from ordinary people into extraordinary advocates and caregivers. They learn medical terminology, navigate complex systems, and become experts in their children's conditions. But most importantly, they never stop believing in their children's potential for happiness and growth. As the evening light faded outside the hospital windows, the family lounge filled with a sense of shared understanding and mutual respect. These parents had opened their hearts to William and Catherine, sharing their most vulnerable moments and their deepest hopes. In return, they had received the validation that their struggles mattered and their love was making a difference in their children's lives. The hospital's main corridor had grown quiet as evening shift change began, but word of the royal visit had spread throughout the building. Staff members who weren't directly involved in patient care had gathered in small groups, hoping to catch a glimpse of William and Catherine before they departed. However, the royal couple had one more important stop to make: the neonatal intensive care unit, where the hospital's tiniest patients fought their biggest battles. NICU director Dr. Angela Roberts led them through the specialized ward, where premature babies and newborns with serious medical conditions received round-the-clock care. The unit hummed with sophisticated medical equipment, but the atmosphere was surprisingly peaceful. Soft classical music played in the background, and the lighting was kept dim to simulate the womb environment these early arrivals had left too soon. In the first incubator they approached, a baby girl born at just 26 weeks gestation slept peacefully, surrounded by tubes and wires that monitored every breath and heartbeat. Her parents, Tom and Lisa Chen, had been maintaining a constant vigil beside her incubator for the past month. Lisa placed her hand gently on the incubator's surface, as close as she could get to touching her daughter without disturbing the sterile environment. "We weren't sure she would survive the first night," Lisa whispered, her voice filled with wonder at her daughter's tenacity. "But look at her now. She's gained almost a pound and her lungs are getting stronger every day." The baby, whom they had named Hope, had defied several dire predictions from doctors who had prepared her parents for the worst possible outcomes. Tom explained how they had learned to read the monitors and understand their daughter's subtle cues. "Every parent learns their baby's cries and movements," he said, "but we've had to learn the language of machines too. When her oxygen levels dip or her heart rate changes, we know exactly what it means." This technological parenting required skills they never imagined they would need to develop. Catherine watched with deep emotion as Lisa gently talked to Hope through the incubator walls. We read to her every day, Lisa explained. The nurses say babies can hear their parents' voices even when they're this small, so we want her to know we're here. They had been reading the same children's book for weeks, believing that familiar stories would comfort Hope during her long journey toward health. In another part of the NICU, they met baby Marcus, whose heart defect required surgery when he was only 5 days old. His teenage parents, Amy and Jake, looked exhausted from weeks of stress and uncertainty, but their devotion to their son was unmistakable. At 17 and 18 years old, they had been thrust into a world of medical decisions and financial pressures that would challenge adults twice their age. Amy's mother, Patricia, had become their main support system, taking leave from her job to help the young couple navigate the overwhelming responsibilities of having a critically ill newborn. "I never imagined I'd become an expert in pediatric cardiology," Patricia said with a tired smile. "But you learn whatever you need to learn when your family needs you." William was particularly moved by Jake's transformation from a typical teenager into a devoted father. "I used to worry about video games and basketball," Jake admitted. "Now I spend my time researching Marcus's condition and learning how to give him his medications. It's scary, but I want to be the best dad I can be for him." His maturity and commitment impressed everyone who worked with the family. Dr. Roberts introduced them to the NICU's most inspiring success story, 6-month-old Daniel, who had been born weighing just over 1 pound. His mother, Sandra Williams, was preparing to take him home after months of intensive care. Daniel had overcome countless complications and setbacks, but he was finally healthy enough to leave the hospital environment that had been his entire world. "When he was born, he was so small he could fit in my husband's palm," Sandra said, cradling Daniel in her arms. "The doctors told us to prepare for the worst, but Daniel had other plans. He fought for every breath, every ounce of weight gain, every milestone." Her voice carried the exhaustion of months spent worrying, but also the joy of witnessing miraculous progress. Sandra's husband, Michael, had documented Daniel's entire NICU journey with photographs, creating a visual story of their son's incredible growth and development. "We wanted to remember every step," he explained, "both the scary times and the celebrations. Someday we'll show Daniel how many people were cheering for him from the very beginning." The photo album had become a treasured record of their family's resilience and hope. The NICU nurses had clearly formed deep bonds with the families they served. Nurse manager Carol Thompson had worked in the unit for over 20 years and had helped thousands of families through their most vulnerable moments. "These parents become like family to us," she explained to Catherine. "We celebrate every small victory together and provide support during the setbacks. Sometimes we're the only people who truly understand what they're going through." Carol shared stories of former NICU babies who now return to visit as healthy children and teenagers. "We have kids who come back to show us their school awards, their sports trophies, their graduation photos," she said with pride. "They're living proof that the tiniest babies can grow up to achieve amazing things. Those visits give current families hope when they need it most." As William and Catherine prepared to leave the NICU, they were approached by a group of parents who had formed an informal support network during their children's hospitalizations. These families had bonded over shared experiences of fear, hope, and sleepless nights spent watching monitors and praying for improvements. They had created their own community within the hospital walls, offering practical advice and emotional support to newcomers facing similar challenges. One father, David Park, spoke for the group. "We wanted to thank you for coming here and really listening to our stories," he said. "Sometimes people don't know what to say to parents with sick children, so they avoid us or offer empty platitudes. But you've treated us like real people with valid concerns and genuine hopes. That means more than you might realize." The group had prepared a small gift for William and Catherine, a photo album filled with pictures of all the NICU babies, along with messages from their families. Each page told a different story of courage, love, and determination. The album would serve as a permanent reminder of the incredible strength they had witnessed during their visit. As they looked through the album together, Catherine was struck by the common thread running through every family's experience, the transformative power of unconditional love. These parents had discovered depths of devotion and resilience they never knew they possessed, all in service of giving their children the best possible chances for healthy, happy futures. Their love had literally been a life-giving force for the tiniest and most vulnerable patients in the hospital. As the long day at Manchester Children's Hospital drew to a close, William and Catherine found themselves standing in the hospital's main lobby, surrounded by staff members who had worked tirelessly to make their visit meaningful for every family they met. The atmosphere was filled with emotional exhaustion and deep satisfaction. Everyone present had witnessed something extraordinary unfold throughout the day. Dr. Sarah Mitchell approached them with tears in her eyes, holding a thick folder filled with letters and drawings from patients who hadn't been able to meet them personally. "These are from children throughout the hospital," she explained. "Some are too sick to have visitors right now. Others are in surgery or treatments, but they all wanted to contribute something to thank you for coming." The folder represented dozens of young voices expressing gratitude and hope. William and Catherine spent several minutes examining each piece of artwork and reading every letter. The messages ranged from simple thank you notes written in crayon to sophisticated poems composed by older patients. Each contribution reflected the unique personality of its creator, while sharing common themes of appreciation, courage, and dreams for the future. One letter from a 9-year-old cancer patient simply said, "Thank you for making my mom smile today. She hasn't smiled in a long time." Head nurse Jennifer Adams had organized the nursing staff to share their observations about the day's impact. "We've seen immediate changes in our patients' moods and energy levels," she reported. Children who have been withdrawn and sad are suddenly talking about their visit and making plans for tomorrow. Parents who looked defeated this morning are now discussing their children's futures with renewed hope. The transformation wasn't limited to patients and families. Many staff members described feeling reinvigorated in their own dedication to pediatric care. Seeing their work recognized and valued by such prominent figures reminded them why they had chosen to work with sick children in the first place. The visit had reconnected them with the deeper purpose behind their daily routines. Physical therapist Mark Stevens shared how Sophie's standing hug with Catherine had become an inspiration for other rehabilitation patients. "Word spread quickly through the unit," he said. "Kids who have been reluctant to try difficult exercises are suddenly asking if they can work toward giving standing hugs too. Sometimes all it takes is seeing one person achieve something to make it seem possible for everyone else." Dr. Roberts from the NICU reported that several families had asked about creating their own photo albums documenting their baby's progress. Inspired by the album presentation, parents want to start seeing their experiences as stories of triumph rather than just medical crises, she observed. "Your visit helped them understand that their journeys have value and meaning beyond the immediate medical concerns." The hospital's child life specialist, Sarah Martinez, had been documenting the day's activities and noted remarkable changes in patient engagement. Children who usually resist participating in activities have been eagerly asking to draw pictures and write letters, she said. The visit created a sense of connection to the outside world that many of our long-term patients had lost. They feel like their stories matter to people beyond these walls. As word of the visit spread through social media and local news coverage, messages of support began flooding the hospital's communication systems. Former patients and their families reached out to share their own stories, creating an expanding network of encouragement for current patients. The ripple effect of the royal visit was extending far beyond the hospital's physical boundaries. William took a moment to address the assembled staff, acknowledging their incredible dedication and professionalism. "What we witnessed today wasn't just excellent medical care," he said. "We saw healthcare providers who treat every child as if they were their own, families who find strength they never knew they possessed, and children who face unimaginable challenges with courage that humbles us all. You're not just healing bodies, you're nurturing spirits and preserving hope." Catherine added her own observations about the day's emotional impact. "Every family we met today taught us something important about resilience, love, and the power of human connection," she said. "We came here hoping to bring comfort to others, but we're leaving with our own hearts deeply touched and our perspective on what truly matters completely transformed." The couple spent their final moments at the hospital visiting the Children's Memorial Garden, a peaceful space where families could remember young patients who had lost their battles with illness. The garden featured beautiful plantings, comfortable benches, and a small fountain that provided gentle background sounds for reflection and remembrance. Bronze plaques honored children whose lives had ended too soon, but whose memories continued to inspire others. Among the memorial plaques, They found tributes to children who had touched countless lives during their brief time at the hospital, stories of young patients who had comforted other children, supported their families, and maintained hope despite terminal diagnoses. These memorials served as reminders that every life has meaning, regardless of its length, and that love transcends physical presence. As they prepared to leave, spontaneous applause erupted from hospital staff who had gathered to see them off. The sound echoed through the corridors, reaching patient rooms where children and families joined in from their beds and chairs. The applause wasn't just for the royal visitors. It was a celebration of everything they had shared together throughout the day. During their drive back to London, William and Catherine rode in contemplative silence, processing the emotional intensity of their experience. They carried with them Emma's letter to Princess Charlotte, James's handmade airplane model, Sophie's inspiring artwork, and the NICU photo album. But more importantly, they carried the stories, faces, and voices of every person they had encountered. The visit had fulfilled its intended purpose of bringing comfort and recognition to sick children and their families. But it had also accomplished something deeper. It had created lasting connections between people from vastly different circumstances, proving that compassion and human understanding could bridge any gap. The royal couple had witnessed the very best of humanity in action: medical professionals dedicated to healing, families united by love, and children demonstrating that courage has no age requirements. In the weeks that followed, letters and updates continued to arrive at Kensington Palace. Emma's hair began growing back as her treatment progressed successfully. James took his promised visit to the airfield and sat in a real aircraft cockpit. Sophie achieved her goal of walking to the hospital chapel. The NICU babies continued their journeys toward health, supported by families who had found new strength and purpose. The visit to Manchester Children's Hospital had touched every heart involved, creating ripples of hope and healing that would continue long after the cameras stopped rolling and the security details departed. It stood as a testament to the transformative power of human connection and the extraordinary things that happen when people choose to truly see and care for one another during life's most challenging moments.